Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to Prime Live. I'm super excited to once again welcome back into studio our resident wellness expert, Mr. Ronald Abvajee. Now, a very important conversation we'll be having today because I think each and every single one of you watching tonight will be able to relate to this conversation. So stay engaged, stay informed, keep up to date with us on our social media platforms. Ask us questions, send us your comments, and send us your thoughts as well. We'll be talking about the nasty thing we call stress and how to best manage our stress and what to do about it. If you're anything like me, I have no idea what to do. So I'm super excited to engage further in this conversation in managing those lovely cortisol levels. Assalamu alaikum, Ronald. Thank you for joining us on Prime Live.
Wa alaikum salam. Always good to be with you.
You know, when it comes to the word cortisol, we're seeing it a lot on social media. And we're talking about, of course, the stress hormone. And unfortunately, we live in a world that is very fast paced, very stressful, and we have a lot of environmental stresses that South Africans particularly are faced with, whether that be poverty, whether that be a social problem such as domestic violence. There are so many things in our world that are contributing to our levels of stress. And of course, the economy doesn't help us at all either. But let's dissect this conversation and let's start talking about what you feel is the primary causes of stress in our lives.
Well, let's first define what stress is because many people speak about it, but do they actually understand what it is? So, stress is the demand on your body and your mind. And when that demand arises, there is a perceived lack of ability to cope with those demands. So it's a lot to do with perception. So stress isn't in your mind. Stress is actually in your hormones, your nervous system, and your body. And stress has got a physiological reaction and a biochemical reaction. You mentioned cortisol, that's biochemical. But physiological is how it impacts the body. So the primary causes of stress, well, in today's day and age, I'd say it is disconnection. Disconnected to self, seeking distraction, and of course, there's another side of the coin, which is contributing factors. You spoke about it. Things we can't control. Those contribute to the demands on our bodies and our minds. But the determining factors, what happens inside of us, is what we perpetuate. And what stress is not bad. Our bodies are made for stress. If I put a lion in here right now, our body's reaction to that will actually make sure that we survive we'll all be Spider Woman and men climbing up walls to protect ourselves. But when you maintain that impact on the body without allowing the different nervous systems to now regulate and to switch, that's where it becomes dangerous. But ultimately, in today's day and age, it's disconnection with self. It's intrinsically having conversations and not having the ability to deal with things, even though environmentally and the contributing factors impact us. And it's a hard one because society today is all about the scrolls. So stress today is all about validation. Stress today is all about likes. Stress today is all about not dealing. Stress today is about being accessible 24/7, 365. And when that happens, we become disconnected. And when we're disconnected, the question isn't, are we stressed or how are you dealing with stress? The question is actually, how long have I been ignoring the signs in my body that I am under stress?
Well, that's very true and very appropriately shared for this particular generation. I think there's so much of emphasis on external validation. And I cannot imagine having to navigate the world as a young person, as a teenager, as a kid in primary school, having to navigate society with these kind of pressures that do exist in our world, to look a certain way, to be achieving a certain way at a certain time and in a certain place. I'm really glad I didn't end up growing up in this generation with so many of the external pressures that do exist. But let's also talk about stress management. I mean, stress is something that is impacting every single person on a day-to-day basis. And what are some of the tools and techniques that you can share with us this evening for effective stress management that are easy to do, not necessarily in your own time, but if you're in a stressful situation and you are feeling that anxiety and stress welling up inside you, how do we take control in that moment or take back control of our bodies and our minds in that moment?
You know, you speak about the younger generation. There's a meta study that the results were released last year that spoke to the fact that in Gen X, in Gen X, millennials and Gen Zs, that anxiety and stress because of the always on culture and and the external validations because of the social media has increased stress and anxiety by 38% compared to Gen X's.
Wow.
Now, that's scary for me.
Yeah.
Now, when we look at the coping mechanisms and what we can do to manage stress, if we look at what does stress do to the body, so we know that there's three main areas in the brain: your hippocampus, your pituitary gland, your hypothalamus, and your hippocampus. And initially, if there's the survival stress, someone cuts you off in the road, there's an accident, what you see and what you hear forces your body, and it happens so quickly you don't even know it. That's how you can react almost immediately and not realize the super strength or super avoiding certain situations that you are in happens. Because the signals in the brain release adrenaline. It forces the chemicals in the brain, gets the body to release adrenaline. Adrenaline is, initially gets released, and that heightens your body's ability to react. So before you blink your eye, you've reacted. But if you are in that heightened state, the body then releases, because that's the sympathetic nervous system. The parasympathetic nervous system is when it decreases that and you get back into your equilibrium state of, inverted commas, balance. But if you are in the heightened state consistently, your body then releases cortisol. What is cortisol? A steroid type hormone that has got essential functions in the body. So the main thing when it comes to stress is that it forces the glucose release to cope with the physiological demands of the high adrenaline and the physiological demands of stress. So when you have higher cortisol, you find that you are in a constant state of an always-on scenario. And if you don't switch that off, cortisol and adrenaline being elevated consistently has been shown to impact sleep, your gastrointestinal system, so IBS reflux. It has been shown to, signs and symptoms being clenching of the jaws, and also increasing of weight because you tend to eat a lot more when you are stressed, purely based on the cortisol reaction to glucose. So once we understand that, that's actually called the HPA axis, the hippocampus, pituitary, adrenal axis. And those three things keep us elevated in the stress zone. What do we do? One, become aware of how you react to sustained stress. So wherever you are right now, just sit for 5 seconds and just breathe. Is your breathing shallow? Are your shoulders tight? Are you hunched? Do you have a slight headache? Do you have tension in your back? Are you anxious to look at your phone? Are you struggling to sleep? Are you going to eat and overindulge? Are you looking for coffee, caffeine? Are you looking for a shisha pipe? Some people do that, right, as coping mechanisms. But when you look at what is the well-being approach to proactively managing stress, awareness of self, awareness of your physiology. Second thing is addressing it through the basics. You and I speak about it all the time. Our word of the year is?
Mindfulness.
So being present in the here and the now without judgment in the morning, afternoon, and evening allows you to proactively stimulate that parasympathetic nervous system, which is causing which will help decrease adrenaline and cortisol, and then not stimulate the areas in the brain in the HPA axis I spoke to. So a time out as you microstack it throughout the day, focus on deep breathing, and that will of course increase oxygen and decrease that adrenaline rush and cortisol high that you're on. Secondly, you look at the habits of sleep. I'm still learning that. I'm not there yet, I must say to you. I fall short of that a lot. But physical activity as well, because it helps the body regulate the glucose and, of course, mitigate the physiological stresses and strains. So it's literally what you eat, green leafy veggies, fruits, and water. It is what you avoid, smoking and shisha pipes, and, of course, other substances. And it's also what you bring in from a mindfulness practicing perspective in the mornings, in the evenings, and stacking micro habits of breathing in the day. Do you know what it is? We've just come out of Ramadan. The same habits we practiced in Ramadan, just maintain those as you head into the rest of the year.
Ronald, thank you so much. Unfortunately, we have run out of time, but wow, I feel a lot more educated in terms of the impacts that stress can have on the body and how to manage them better. and more importantly, understanding the risks that they do pose if we don't start managing them better. But I love how you took last week's conversation and, kind of translated it into carrying those healthy habits from Ramadan and managing them over now into helping you cope with stress as well. Ronald, always a pleasure to have a conversation with you, and thank you for enlightening and educating us further this evening.
Always my pleasure.
Viewers at home, that was our resident wellness expert, Mr. Ronald Abvajee. I do hope you enjoyed today's conversation surrounding stress, the impacts that stress can have, the negative mindset it can put you in, and more importantly, also the physical aspects that can be present because of poor stress management, as well as understanding the importance and how we can do that better. But on that note, it is time for us to head over to a quick ad break, and we'll come right back.